fine.
The 27-year wait has finally ended, and our friends at Fanatics Sportsbook are cooking up something special. New customers who sign up now for Fanatics Sportsbook will have a limited-time Super Boost offer on Knicks championship odds, boosted to plus 1,000. Right now in the Fanatics Sportsbook app, the Knicks are plus 225. That's over 300% more value on your bet slip. And don't forget that when you bet with Fanatics Sportsbook, you earn FANCASH, up to 10% back on your bets, win or lose. And unlike points that expire, FanCash is the true currency of sport that you could spend on official team gear across every team and league, collectibles, exclusive experiences, all on Fanatics.com. You're getting access to the world of sports every time you bet with Fanatics Sportsbook. The offer is around for a limited time only, so make sure you download the Fanatics Sportsbook app today. Fanatics Sportsbook. Winning hits different here.
Oh, just let it roll, Deej. Let it roll. The vibes were sky high. Welcome, my dear friends, to NBA Finals preview edition of the Knicks Film School X's and O's live show presented by Fanatics Sportsbook. I am joined by, very late in the year, by the detail junkie, the defender of Julius, the doctor of jump shots. His name is DJ Zullo. Welcome to the show, Deej. How are you feeling on this Sunday evening?
We were just talking before we started about the vibes and the feels and all the things, and I've had this like pit of anxiety all day, pretty much all weekend, but it really sort of peaked today where I'm just like thinking, oh man, it's like end of the school year. I'm worried about kid stuff. Is it like, am I worried about like actual day job stuff? And then like my wife goes up to me about an hour ago. She's like, you're just nervous over the finals. And I'm like, no, I'm not nervous. I mean, I'm past that. I have kids. I have like a life beyond sports. I don't get nervous and stress out about the Knicks anymore. And I thought about it for 30 seconds and I realized I'm actually terrified right now about this finals that we're going to embark on. We'll talk all about it, mostly because I just feel like this is the one and I just want it so bad, and it's scaring the shit out of me basically. And
like your life depends on it.
This kind of like my life depends on it in a way. Victor Wembanyama esque. But yeah, it's like it feels like this means so much right now, and the waiting isn't helping. Some injury stuff isn't helping, but I'm just looking forward to it kicking off. I'm looking forward to this hour plus that we're going to talk about it, because hopefully it'll be like the way to get all these thoughts and emotions off my chest, and I'll feel better kind of going into the week. But yeah, a lot of anxiety right now.
God, Deej, crushing the vibes with that intro. God, I'm down and I'm scared now. I mean, first of all, Sunday night, you're the Sunday scaries, just like they're crushing you right now. So yes. I feel like it's a Sunday evening feeling generally. 9 p.m. and on a Sunday evening is just like a terrible time of the week, I think, for all of us. So I think you're gonna get through this, my friend. I think you're gonna get through this. But we're gonna do it together, man. We're gonna do it together because we have a very exciting series to break down an NBA Finals. It's still pretty crazy that we get to say that. An NBA Finals preview show that we get to do. Knicks Spurs. We're here. I will say, I have a buddy who works for the Knicks. Shout out Rami, who said it's like getting. He's like, the feeling I have right now is like when I got to the top of the water slide that I wanted to go on. Like you wait on that long line, and you finally get up there, and you were so excited and so wanted it so bad, and then it's like, oh, now look how high up I am, and look how far the fall is or could be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what maybe that's the source of the anxiety. So it's real.
Yeah,
it is real.
The stakes get really high, literally and figuratively.
The stakes get really high, and opportunity is there right in front of them. And well, let's talk about why. So I don't know. I feel like it starts and ends with Wemby. I feel like Victor Wembanyama has the game 7, plays really well. Obviously, the game 1 is a legendary performance now, should his career continue on the path it's on. And this is a legend in the making. He's leading a finals team at a ridiculously young age. He is a shapeshifter of offense and defense. He changes the way you have to play. He is unique. He is truly unique in the true sense of the word. Unique really means one of one. He is one of one. There is nobody like him. And it's a terrifying opponent. He is one of one. So I feel like it starts with him on defense, Deej. What are the Knicks going to have to do to not allow him to ruin this moment? Because he is capable of ruining the moment on that end alone. What do the Knicks have to do to make this work on the offensive end?
Well, I think we have to start with how the Spurs are going to defend this. And I think it's safe to assume that he starts the series on Josh Hart. I think if the regular season is any indication, if the previous series that he just won is any indication, that they're going to want to put him on the theoretical non-shooter and allow him to wreck shit as a roaming defender. And he pretty much did that. I thought for a lot of it was the primary reason why SGA had a spotty and, certainly lower than his normal standard playoff series against him, because his presence is just always there. And the ground coverage, even though he's been in the league of several years now, it seems to take players a second to sort of get their grounding of like where he is and what he allows and what you can get away with his presence. So I do think the Spurs, in a way, have a similar conundrum that Atlanta had, where, you want to put Wemby on Hart, but do they have the natural placement to put on Karl Anthony Towns? And if that's going to be Castle, then that changes how you're going to defend Brunson. And if it's going to be Vassell, then I think that might be a matchup you can really exploit. But and I think you would agree, are we safe to assume he's going to be guarding Josh Hart when this thing tips off on Wednesday?
Oh, yes. I would bet much dollar on it. I don't think there's any doubt that's the direction they'll go. If you go back to the March 1st matchup, which is the last time these teams played, that was where he guarded from the tip. And
it was a rough start.
If you watched that first quarter, the Knicks had, I think, 5 points, like 6 minutes into the game. Mm-hmm. And basically every possession ended up in the hands of Josh Hart, who didn't make any shots and hesitated and totally stalled out the offense. That was the worst you're going to see. The third quarter was better. I thought a lot of that was better because they got in transition a little bit and just moved faster, and Josh Hart just made a lot of plays. I thought Hart actually attacked Wemby a couple times at the rim, which he's going to have to mix in. You have to at least make him think that you're going to go up with a shot in order to create. So I think that's important if you get him in enough space, and Josh can attack him, especially going to his right hand into the body, trying to move him and finish once in a while. I wouldn't do it a lot, but once in a while he's got to do it. But yeah, he's going to guard Josh Hart, and it's going to be the great variable of this Knicks era continues to be, and maybe will always be, does Josh Hart make threes? And I think that'll be tested early, right?
Yeah, it absolutely will. And, if you're the Spurs, what is and this is always the thing with coaches, and we've seen it so often with the Josh Hart series, where they start with, we're not going to guard Josh Hart. And then he has a game or multiple games or a quarter even where he shoots the ball. And then all of a sudden the coach freaks out and they bail on the scheme. I don't know. I imagine there's going to be a little more, I think, willingness to, even if Hart is shooting well, to just stick with the defensive scheme if you're Mitch Johnson and the Spurs. But we've seen plenty of coaches bail on that coverage because Josh Hart makes some shots. But he's going to have to make some shots, and he's going to have to be a willing shooter. Stuff we've been saying for years now. Now, I think where you saw Caruso take advantage of this, because Wemby is basically playing a zone. It's a one-man zone to where he's loading up on whatever side the primary handler is going to be. And in this case, obviously, it's going to be Jalen Brunson. He's going to be shading off and loading up to that side. Now, they did relax that a little bit as the series moved along, where it was really aggressive early against Oklahoma City. And then as the series moved along, they kind of trusted their point of attack defenders to just play a little more straight up. But Wemby was so shady in that area. And what you saw Caruso do was it's almost like you would have a baseline runner against like a 2-3, just constant motion on side to side, corner to corner. And it just confused the matchups. It forced, saw this. And I think this is going to be a real key to the series, is like, how can the Knicks make De'Aaron Fox guard? Because there are so many times where Caruso's running from one corner to the next. All of a sudden, Fox is responsible for two. They don't communicate it, and Fox is giving up a layup to someone, or he's giving up an open three, and he's just not in the right position because Wemby is trying to stay connected to that side that the primary is going to be. So I think Hart moving constantly and just playing with a pace, the whole Villanova 0.5 basketball, I think is going to be maybe even more important than his actual shooting, is just getting into a screen, getting out of it. Off-ball screening, which you saw be a little more prominent in the Cleveland series that the Knicks won. There's just going to have to be like a smorgasbord of things that he's going to have to do. But obviously, it starts and ends with his willingness to shoot the basketball. And even with that, I just think you're going to see the Spurs be a little more willing to just stick with it, as they did with the Oklahoma City Thunder, where Caruso made a bunch of threes, and they really didn't change up the matchups that much. And look, if Hart is making threes, I think this goes from what I think is going to be a pretty close series to a series where I don't think the Knicks can lose it. That's how as big a swing as that as there is in the series is Hart shooting the basketball.
Massive variable. I will say one interesting part about what you just said, DJ, like how willing are they to stick to it, is also like how aggressively does Wemby even close out? Because a really interesting part of that game on March 1st, if you watch it, is I think there were 4 different times, it was 3 or 4, it might have been 4 different times that Wemby flew out on Hart's 3, and the Spurs just don't have any size around him. And so if he flies out on a 3, Cat got 3 or 4 offensive rebounds on that particular play. Wemby with his crazy closeout, Hart misses the shot, and Cat just overpowers Vassell or Castle or whoever's under there, because it's Wemby and it's wings. There's no, and the wings already, or I should say it's Wemby and guards almost. I mean, they're barely wings. Unless Harrison Barnes gets time, Keldon Johnson, when he's out there, can rebound a little bit, but it's small around him. So when Wemby closes to Josh, they created a lot of opportunity out of that. I'm wondering, not only is it like, do we just stick with the strategy even if Hart makes them? How much does Wemby even close to Josh, or does he stick in rebounding position? Is going to be an interesting push and pull. Obviously, the more Josh shoots and the more Josh makes, the more he has to close. And that changes the calculus in terms of how easy it is for Towns to exploit that matchup. Because, Deej, as you know, you can't go to Towns in the post on Vassell or on Castle if Wemby's just playing 25 feet off Hart. It doesn't do anything for you. You end up in the same place. The Knicks aren't. They've shown they're not going to do that. They're not going to throw it into the post, invite the double, and see what Cat does out of there. But where Cat has to get his touches against that matchup is actually on the offensive glass, and he can, and he will, and he has done that. So that'll be an interesting push and pull just within each possession, even.
Yeah, because it's like what you were really talking about is the psychology of a guy like Wemby, who if he sees Hart make a couple of threes, even if they're not changing the coverage. He's gonna. And you saw this with Caruso. I think it was game 3 where there was Caruso kind of got open on the left corner, and Wemby flies out on him. Caruso up fakes and gets a foul called, and it's a type of kind of reckless closeout that probably wouldn't have happened if Caruso didn't make all those threes earlier in the series. So even if the Spurs are like, we're still sticking with this, if Hart's making threes, they're going to close on him. You saw that in the Cleveland series after his game 2, where just the closeouts were a little more aggressive, and Hart is really good against a big where he just can put the ball on the floor in a straight line. And to your point, no rim protection back there if Wemby is the one that's flying out. And the other piece of the Wemby factor here offensively is, or on his impact on defense, and this is where we can kind of the questions of the injury of Mitch become to the forefront, is because Mitch is the one guy that he kind of has to guard. They're not going to play him with Cornette. I think there's just going to be, you saw this in the Cup game where Mitch just had his way with Wemby, and you saw in the last 2 matchups, there's just a limit to how Wemby is going to be able to roam when he knows that Mitchell Robinson just doesn't have another player on the because you talk about the size issue that the Spurs have. He's going to have to get back to Mitch, and you saw it multiple times where Brunson would get into that short mid-range area, the area where Wemby was dynamite against Shea in the last series, to where you could see Wemby with his head on a swivel, knowing in the back of his mind he's got to get back to Mitch. And that really, I thought, that gravity was really impactful. And especially if you're talking about Mitch screening, I saw it was what account was it? It was one, I think it was the all basketball account posted the Knicks or everyone's pick and roll duos, their efficiency and their volume. And the Mitch Brunson pick and roll duo is 1.22 points per possession, and the volume is really high per 100 possessions. The Knicks are getting great stuff out of that 2-man game. And if Wemby is brought into the action, you kind of see him, you know where he is. I think it's a little more comfortable as an offense when he's in the action versus when he's just kind of in multiple places at once. So I think Mitch's health and his effectiveness on a lot of ways is huge for this series, but I think it's really starts with Wemby's kind of responsibility to keep him off the offensive glass being really tough for him to navigate when he's also trying to help out and provide that support against Brunson or Bridges or Anunoby. So I think that's a real key, and hopefully Mitch is healthy and he's there and he's got that same impact, because I think it's the one area where Wemby might struggle the most in this series.
Yeah, I the way I've been envisioning it is Wemby, when he's facing you and he's zoning up like that, basically he takes away, I don't know, what's this called when you have a cone out from a person, his peripheral, his peripheral, I don't know.
Yeah,
you could visualize it. There's a triangle going out of him that goes all the way to the 3-point arc, and that
I know exactly what you're saying.
It becomes a no-fly zone. That hole, wherever from his peripheral vision, from where he's standing all the way out to the arc, is essentially a no-shot zone. But there are 2 places where he can be vulnerable, and this is where I think the Knicks had an advantage over OKC, and the reason I kind of like the matchup for them. He can't get he does not come all the way out. He does not show on pick and roll. Not interested in it. They don't want him to do it. They just want him near the basket, rightfully so. He's probably one of the best rim protectors of all time. You should want him by the basket. But the Spurs also pressure at half court, especially against Brunson. They're going to do it. Castle, Vassell, Fox, all of them like to get up in, and the reason they like to do it and they feel like they can do it and get aggressive doing it is because they have the big fella behind them that cleans up all the mistakes. We saw Brunson walk into a bunch of pull-up threes in that scenario. It's something that Shea just does not do. It is the one part of his offensive arsenal that is not yet developed. And Jalen Brunson, who has struggled from 3 in this playoffs, is going to have to make threes. and he's going to have to make them off the dribble, and that's going to be a key. And when Josh Hart screened, or Mitch, when Wemby guarded Mitch, Josh Hart, when Wemby was guarding Josh Hart, screened near half court, and Brunson gets 2 dribbles to the 3-point line, got to shoot it, and he's got to make a few of them. And I think that's one battleground, because that cone from Wemby ends at 3-point line. He's not getting all the way out there. And the other vulnerability is behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Mitch comes into play, right? That Mitch, the best there is, the term you've coined, the anchor, I don't know if you coined it or you just use it, but the anchoring, where Mitch comes from on the baseline and backs you out. And Wemby cannot deal with that physicality when Mitch is right. And look, Cat can do it too. Josh Hart can't do it because he's not big enough. So it's really when Mitch is in the game, this becomes important. And if Wemby's going to shade like that, he can't also rebound behind him. That cone is not behind him, and it's not all the way out to the 3-point line. And I feel like those are the 2 places where the Knicks can really exploit is a strong word, can find some advantages, let's say. And yeah, Mitch's health becomes important. But those plays were so fascinating in that matchup, DJ. I know exactly what you're talking about. Brunson would get initial attack. Wemby's right there. Brunson would counter with going somewhere else. And as that counter happened and Mitch rolled into that under the basket area, Wemby just retreated a little bit. And that's what opened things up for Brunson. And I think you're going to see some of that if Mitch is a threat. And let's just hope he's a threat, because it's a really important element of the Knicks game. And it's a really important advantage the Knicks have in the series against a defender who just takes a lot off the table. So anything you can get on the table needs to be on the table. And I'm just hoping that Mitch can do it.
Yeah, as am I. And, the other thing, you talked about the pull-up shooting with Brunson, and you're right, he struggled a little bit in the postseason. 5 of 12, I think, when I tracked it in the regular season, counting the NBA Cup against the Spurs. Had one game where he shot it really well and was kind of like didn't do as much in the other games, but the shots are there. The Spurs, interestingly, kind of amped up their ball pressure in the OKC series as that series moved along. I think it was just more of this team has no ball handlers in OKC. Let's just try to wear down SGA as much as possible, which, harken back to the 24 playoffs against the Pacers, reminding me of sort of that, where the Pacers, as the series moved along, just like more and more wearing at Brunson down. I think the Knicks, if you're going to have Wemby guarding Hart, I think you're just going to have to be a little more willing to let Hart take some of those.
Oh, 100%. Hart should basically be the point guard. He should basically be the point guard. Like, let him bring the ball up, right?
Yeah. Yep. I think with Bridges, you want to limit that, because there was a few possessions where they just got into him, and he's all of a sudden there's 12 on the shot clock when you're just initiating your first action, because he struggled against the ball pressure. But if Wemby's guarding Hart, you don't really have that. De'Aaron Fox, again, continues to be he had the Brunson matchup, probably more than he's going to have in this series, probably more than the Spurs would have liked. He's the one guy that kind of goes under those Brunson screens to try to meet him on the other side. And Brunson got him for a couple pull-ups in that scenario where he just wasn't able. It was a drop. He's also going under, which is very odd. It was almost like it was intentional, because he did it multiple times, which you don't typically pair a under screen with a drop coverage. It's sort of like antithetical to what you're trying to do. He did it anyway. Brunson got him for a couple threes. It's going to be interesting, the Brunson freedom of movement and just how much he's going to be able to get to his spots against this particular group of defenders. We know Castle is excellent. He's aggressive, but we've talked about this, where if you're not like Dyson Daniels' length and height, Brunson, if he's able to sort of like carve his way to where he wants to go, if you're 6'5", you're limited to what you could do against his kind of lean back and his pull-ups in that short mid-range area. I think obviously Castle gets a primary matchup. I think Harper gets some cracks at him. You talked about the size starting kind of like when we started, like, just do they have enough size to really impact Brunson as a point of attack? Because that was what they did against OKC that I thought changed the series, is that they tamped down the pressure in terms of like how much help they were sending. And they just were like, all right, you guys got to guard. And Castle had the primary matchup with SGA. Can Brunson exploit that? If they're going to play this a little more straight up, then does that open up Brunson to have a little more opportunity here to have a really big series? And I just don't know if the Spurs, I love Castle as a defender. I just don't know if they have enough to really slow him down over a series. I think Brunson has a opportunity here to have some really good scoring numbers and just overall like offensive impact stuff.
His patience is so key in this matchup. And I think, again, like maybe even a slight advantage over SGA, and SGA is patient and gets to his spots. Brunson is so surgical and so deliberate in where, and he understands where Wemby is on the floor. And just those plays that we're talking about were so brilliant in how he kind of manipulated that coverage, waited till Wemby retreated, then made his move, went to the other side of the floor, had one floater back to his left side over Wemby's outstretched arm as he was leaning on Mitch, because Wemby can do both at once. That went in. Look, he's obviously going to have to be great. And to your point, I think he can be great in this series. And I think Castle's really the only really good matchup they have. And even Castle's not the standard kind of long guy that bothers Brunson or tries to bother Brunson. And that'll be like, doesn't nearly have the length and size of Osar Thompson, for example. So it's just going to be interesting to see him navigate that. I wonder, and I know the Fox defensive stuff wasn't something that jumped out at me, and I wonder, do they hunt De'Aaron Fox? I imagine Fox will start on Bridges.
I think so.
And does Bridges loves to move and screen, and I wonder if they, just to start possessions, maybe try to get that switch early, just a rub screen from Bridges and see if they switch it, and now Brunson's attacking Fox instead of Castle or Vassell, depending on how they match up with Towns. I think it's going to be Vassell to start, I had to guess. So that's an interesting wrinkle if they want to really get Fox on that Brunson matchup a lot.
I agree. I know Fox sort of looked better as that series moved along. I think he's really compromised, especially the explosiveness seems very limited. And I think he's just they obviously need him because they don't have a ton of other options. And he's kind of a stabilizing force for them in a way. But I just think there's a big time limitation on the defensive end when he's right, especially in the Brunson matchup. And I think, to your point, I think Bridges could take advantage of some of those. And another area, and we've both talked about it, it's just not a guy that's going to get up there and contest those corner threes. So if he is sort of inching up and he's loading up on that Brunson side, and you have Bridges in that strong side corner, the Knicks just love to, in Brunson especially, quick toss to the corner, and Bridges is already into a shot before you really have a chance to contest it. So, yeah, on the offensive end in general, I think there's advantages for the Knicks. I think we haven't talked a lot about, Towns, how I'm a little, I got to be honest, I don't know what kind of series to expect from him kind of going into it. I think there's obviously going to be some physical advantages and just general size advantages with him. Is there opportunities to get Wemby on him? Is there cross-matching scenarios where Wemby is just going to have to guard, especially if Hart flies out in transition early, doesn't necessarily bear fruit in terms of a bucket, but you get Wemby matched up on Cat in those scenarios because he's trying to take away the trail three and he's got to get body to body. Then can you flow into your and the Knicks have been really good with this. Even when there is a matchup where Cat does draw the five, they're just much more surgical in their approach of immediately flowing into Brunson Cat 2-man and then taking advantage of that. Almost like they know these opportunities are not coming along that often against certain teams. And when they get it, they are taking advantage of it. So I think Cat being opportunistic when Wemby is guarding him, if Cornette has opportunities to guard him, take advantage of that. And then I agree with you with the post scenario. You're not going to post them that much, especially with Wemby in the game. Can those kind of elbow touches, pinch post stuff against a smaller defender, can you do anything there? I'm a little pessimistic in that area because I think Wemby at that point is just going to take every single cut and movement away out of that. But can you get something out of Cat from the free throw line in isolation against these smaller defenders where you can see Wemby and kind of know where he's going to be? I didn't love those possessions against Strus when he did that against Cleveland, but is that an area where you can exploit? I would explore that because I think Cat has shown the ability, especially when he can get downhill, to maybe do some things, but then you got to worry about Wemby sort of coming over and impacting. So I don't know if you have a better read on it. What do you think are the areas that Cat, beyond the offensive rebounding, which we talked about, that he can really exploit on the offensive end?
Yeah, the offensive rebounding. There was one play that stuck in my mind where Bridges actually cross-court enteried to Cat on Castle, and Cat just kind of ripped through for an and one. I think it was the March 1st matchup. I've watched all 3 games. They get a little mixed up in my mind, but I think it was the March 1st matchup. And that's interesting to me, and I wonder if there's something there. Now, it's not something the Knicks have done a ton, and I don't think it was designed. But if you are basically positioned in a pick and roll with Wemby's man to draw him up at least a little bit, and then as that's happening, you kind of just throw it over the top because that side, right, Cat's side. So Cat then pinches into the post on the weak side, and you throw it over the top to him to catch before Wemby can really react. That's just because if you're standing there trying to enter him the ball from like the strong side, like we're in the 1990s, they're not good. It's just not going anywhere. Like Wemby's going to be standing there, right? But if you can kind of a little misdirection into a post, that might work. Certainly when Wemby's off the floor, and he'll get time with Wemby off the floor, you should certainly go to those sets. If they go too big, they like to post Cat when Mitch is in the game. That's a good look. Don't mind that. But just like strong side post entries to Cat on a smaller guy with Wemby in roaming mode doesn't interest me. If they can find some misdirection to him in the post, that works. Cat's going to have to scrounge a little bit, and he's done that so well. It's like the occasional defense falls asleep on a trail, transition, catch and sweep and go, even on smaller guys, the occasional just physical drive. But as he's done so well in this playoff run, a lot of it is kind of just like his self-control and restraint is the best version of himself. And he's, when he's needed and he comes up big, but like, yeah, the Cleveland matchup was the same way where like, we know what they're going to do. We know how they're going to roam off of him. Like he just has to find pockets. He has to find pockets to make it all work. Sorry about that. He has to find pockets to make it all work, and offensive rebounding is going to be important. And then, like, can the Knicks find little misdirections? And then when he's off the floor, that's when he's really got to go. So I think it's a combination of all of those things. One thing that, you mentioned, the Knicks took a gazillion threes against this team. In all 3 matchups, they were over 40 attempts. They did not have trouble generating 3-point shots, and that's interesting to me, and I think it's due to, first, the Knicks have just like, I don't know if this was intentional by the front office. I think it was because of who they've drafted this front office. They just have a lot of guys who shoot high and shoot fast, and that is so important against this team and against Wemby in particular. And in contrast to OKC, who I think on the whole have a team of slow releases and low releases. I'm looking at you, Chet Holmgren, but I'm also looking at Lou Dort, and I'm even looking at SGA from 3. These guys are all kind of slow and low, whereas the Knicks, all of them elevate. I'm looking at, Deuce McBride got off a ton of threes against this team. We know Shamet's release is low, but he does jump high to get it off.
Yeah, how about that OG 3 where we had Wemby isolated on the left quarter?
Unbelievable. Mikal Bridges, of course, can elevated over Wemby a couple times as well for 3. Like, they're not intimidated because of how they release the basketball. Jordan Clarkson, if he decides to shoot, quick, high release. This is the Knicks drafted Quentin Grimes, by the way, one of the quickest, highest releases in the league, who's no longer on the team. They seem to prioritize this, and it's amazing how you get to a series like this, it becomes so important. I think that's why they got so many threes off, and they made a lot of threes. And I just like I like that ability for them to get it off quick before this defense and Wemby in particular can recover and make it too tough.
Yeah, well, just to sort of, I think, highlight that point, OKC on wide open 3. So that's with a defender 6 feet plus away from the shooter, shot 41%, which is like maybe a tad below what you want to be, but kind of in the range of what you'd expect to shoot on wide open 3s per NBA's tracking data. On open 3s, where the defender is 3 to 6 feet away, they shot 29% from 3. And I think that, to me, is like, all right, the defender you're open, but they're sensing the closeout based on what you're talking about. Like Chet, and he even talked about this in his end of the year press conference today, where he's like, they're just closing out hard on me. So I think in the back of his mind, he knows, like, more than anyone, like, his shot takes a while to load up and all those limbs and get it up there. So I think when you are a team. I think this is part of the calculus with how San Antonio defended OKC. We're like, we're going to give up shots, but we're going to give up shots where, yeah, they're open, but they're going to feel our presence. The Oklahoma City Thunder were obviously susceptible to that defense. I just don't think the Knicks are going to be as susceptible. And not only do they have better shot makers in general, but I think you make the point. They just have guys that are just used to and accustomed to and almost thrive in making contested threes against guys running out at them. And I think that is a huge area, because if they are going to load up against Brunson and provide that same sort of backline support, the Knicks, if they move the ball, are going to get open threes. And I think they're just well equipped to make more than 29% of their open threes. And if they make 35% of those, it's a tough series for San Antonio to win.
Yeah, it's that OG three stood out to me so much. I was like, I haven't seen a guy just pivot on Wemby and take a three over him. But like, that is the advantage of being, 6'9" with a very high release point, is you can do it. I didn't even mention Cat, who, like, it's flat-footed, but it's super quick out of his hand and very hard to contest unless you're really up on him when he catches. So that, I think that's a collective advantage for the Knicks on offense as well. So let's shift to the defensive side. I think we covered a lot of the offensive stuff. I think, again, it starts with Wemby. I think the Knicks played pretty good defense on the Spurs, Champagny 3-point barrage notwithstanding. The one play, and I want to start with this play that I thought really hurt them in multiple games, was the pin down that the Spurs love to run for Wemby, especially going to his right hand. And what happened often is the Knicks would trail that. And if it's Brunson's man setting the screen, like, Brunson has no chance to stay in front, which happened a bunch of times. What did you see there, Deej? Like, and the Knicks should expect it to come. It's a play that the Spurs run not just against the Knicks; they run it all the time.
Yeah.
How do the Knicks kind of limit that particular action? Because to me, that's where Wemby really hurt them, is on that. And otherwise, I thought when they were in one-on-one scenarios, we know they have good defenders for Wemby. OG being maybe the best. Mitch, again, health, if he's where he needs to be, pretty good there. Cat got opportunities on him. I thought when he didn't foul was good. How do you guard that action? And you know what? Maybe we should take a step back before we get there.
Yeah.
Who starts on him? Let's start there. Who starts on Wemby?
Yeah, because I think the Knicks have a tough decision to make too. I think conventional wisdom is like OG gets the matchup to start. Now you remember there's no Harrison Barnes to put Cat now. He's basically out of the rotation. So if you want to go OG on Wemby, we just play this out. I think you have some options for Cat, but I don't think you have great options. You have the Champagny spot to put him on. I think that would be terrifying if I'm the guard-to-guard screens, the transition threes, which that was the one kind of barrage of threes that the one game he had. I think a lot of that was transition early offense stuff. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense. We've seen teams put their center on Vassell at times. I think I could live with that. I don't think Cat would be totally exploited out of that scenario. I can go either way on this. I think they're probably going to start Cat on Wemby and have OG in a support role, and just like, instead of like Cat kind of roaming off and providing like rim protection and backline help, let OG have that opportunity. Now, I think for the play you're talking about, I think where it's the most dynamite is when you have a center on Wemby trying to navigate that screen and a small kind of defending the screener, because you don't want to switch it. And then you're asking your center to get around it and be physical. And, I think you have to be extraordinarily physical with that action and try to make that curl or that action to almost, you just flatten it out a little bit, because we can catch it unencumbered. He's one dribble. If he has to take a dribble and he's at the rim. So I think that's where it becomes terrifying, where OG, I think, can sort of like be physical, but also be nimble enough to stay connected. And I think that is where I agree with you. It's probably the most difficult individual or specific action to guard. I think OG can handle that. I really, and Mitch had a lot of trouble with it specifically. I just think it's tough to ask Mitch or Cat to navigate that. And, I think it's also up to Brunson, like be physical with the screener. Like don't let him set the screen to where he's really getting a hit on your center. I think it's a team-wide effort there, but yeah, I think Cat gets the start. OG is going to see plenty of time on him. I just don't know if I worry about where you put Cat in that matchup. If he's not guarding Wemby, but you can go either way. Do you have a feel on, do you think it's OG to start?
Yeah, well, no, I think if the March 1st matchup is any indication, and I think it probably is, I think you'll see Cat start there on Wemby. And I think Cat has some tools that he can use against Wemby, and the low center of gravity that he has compared to most guys his size, and like the way he can get into Wemby is all good. Obviously, it just risks the foul trouble stuff that you want to avoid. At the end of the second quarter in that game, they went to OG on him, even when Cat on the floor, and Cat went to Vassell. So it's something they can go to. Now, the Spurs don't always have their starting five on the floor, and if Keldon Johnson's out there, it's a no-brainer to me. Like, Cat goes to Keldon Johnson.
Right.
If Harrison Barnes gets any time, it's a no-brainer to me. If what's his name, Bryant is out there, and he's gotten time, like it's a no-brainer. You put Cat on there, and just because you also have to consider where to put Jalen Brunson in this equation, and he's probably best suited to Champagnie. Again, that game was a disgrace in terms of guarding a shooter, but I think Brunson will do better than he did in that game. You can put him on Vassell, but Vassell can rise above. He has a real jump shot, whereas Champagnie does not. And if you really get into Champagnie and force him to put it on the floor, he's just not that effective a player, whereas Vassell has game outside of his three-point shot. So I think you want Brunson on Champagnie, and because of that, I think Cat would probably guard Vassell if they went to OG on Wemby to start, but I like you think that they will start Cat on him, and then OG will be kind of like a when the right matchup is there, when Cat's not on the floor, whatever the reason is that they would put OG on him. They can go small if Mitch isn't healthy. Certainly, this is a team you can go small on. They can go OG at the fight against this team. I think you'll probably see that, especially considering Mitch's pinky issue. So that's another way you just easily get OG on Wemby is if neither center's on the floor. Yeah, so it's going to be both of them, and if Mitch is healthy, you'll see Mitch on him. I wonder if Bridges can get a shot at some point. That's not crazy to me. He certainly has the length to get up there with him. Are you worried about the board? The offensive rebounding becomes an issue, of course, but like I'm not panicked about that. If you have to go there for whatever reason, foul trouble or whatever, I think Bridges actually has a chance there. I don't know. Did you think about that at all?
I didn't think about it in terms of starting possession. I did think about it like if he's guarding the ball handler and you just want to veer back, switch it, and like kind of prevent the roll and just allow Bridges to get under Wemby, because I think the Wemby roll to the rim is like even probably more than the pin down action is like where he just is so terrifying right now. I feel like he's gotten that's always obviously been a major area where you have to guard against. He's just at a level now as a roll man that is beyond anywhere he was even in March. He's just a different player. And the action that was really impossible for OKC to muster any sort of defense against was the empty side pick and roll with him and Castle, because it's just the help side and the taggers, it's a little more confusing of like where you're sending help. It's not clean. They're also putting a great shooter in the opposite corner, and that great shooter is usually guarded by a really small person, which if he's going to be your low man help on a Wemby roll, SGA had trouble with that. And McCain, he was in that position a lot.
Brunson, Castle's really good. Castle's really good at that cross court skip. He throws darts.
He does. Turns it over a fair amount. I think that was a low-key major part of the series, but you're right. He can hit that pass. He sees over the top. So the Spurs are going to make sure Brunson is the last line of defense. So I've been thinking about like, how do you load up? Because you saw like how they would have Chet sort of like, if he's guarding the player one pass away, like be really aggressive in the gaps. I think that opens you up for obviously giving up catch and shoot threes, but also just like stampede drives. And I think that could be dangerous. Would you just consider a Cat on Castle scenario where you have obviously, in that scenario, you would have Anunoby guarding Wemby. I think the most dangerous the Spurs are in the half court is a Castle Wemby pick and roll. So is there a way to mitigate that? If you can just put Cat on Castle, which you've seen teams do and dabble with a little bit, putting their center on Castle, and then you can switch that action and kind of stay out of the Wemby roll as much as possible in the Castle drive. It opens you up to some transition cross-matching scenarios where that's going to be really tricky because you're going to have to communicate that because Cat is not always going to be able to get out in front and get onto that matchup. But did you think about that at all? Is that something you'd even kind of tinker with a little bit?
This is something I might do if I'm down 3-1, but it is not
too aggressive.
First of all, like the way Castle drives, again, especially against backtracking defenders, you are really in foul danger. And it's not that Cat can't guard him and move side to side. Like, I don't even think Castle's that shifty, but he's so physical and he's throwing his shoulder at you. And if you're moving at all, you might get 2 calls that way. And then all of a sudden Cat's on the bench for the rest of the first half. I also think, like, what percentage did Castle shoot against the Knicks in the 3 games they played this season?
Do you have the number? I have no idea.
I have the number. Yeah, I have the number.
Field goal percentage, was it 42%?
He shot 29%.
Okay.
Yeah. Castle was just not really an issue. And Castle's gotten better, and look where he is now. Obviously, he's, even since March, he's growing every game. There's a young player who's a future star. No doubt about it. But the Knicks have such good matchups against him. Physical defenders who can bother him and force him into turnovers. All their wings can do it. Hart was phenomenal on him in the March game. I actually want to just keep him where he is. Let's keep him at 30% from the field. And I don't want to mess around with that matchup and allow him to get into some kind of rhythm he's not in currently. Like, the Knicks can go under screens and they can be physical with him. And I don't see how he has a huge offensive series against the New York Knicks as constituted. I think where the Knicks can get hurt is on those kick out threes. Vasiljevic might have a big series, and Champagnie might have a big series, and obviously Wemby might have a big series. I don't see a world where like Fox and Castle take over games based on the way the Knicks have so many guys that they can throw at those guards, and that includes the entire bench. Again, we have another matchup where our small guards off the bench will have no issue taking on these guys. Like, I shouldn't say no issue. Obviously, they can score on them, but like I have no qualms with throwing Alvarado, Deuce, Shaman on any of these guys as from a ball handler perspective. Yeah, that's a really comfortable place for the Knicks to be, as it was against the Cavs, where you can throw them at Harden and you can throw them at Mitchell and you just don't worry about it. So I don't want to mess with that. And by the way, to the point about Wemby rolling, the advantage the Knicks have if you throw it high enough, nobody can get there. But if you have Cat on Wemby in the pick and roll, you know who's maybe the best guy in the world at being behind that play, guarding the corner and breaking up a lob like that? It's OG Anunoby.
OG, yep.
So the advantage, and another reason why you might not want to start OG there, is because the value of OG being able to roam off of Fox. He actually started on De'Aaron Fox on March. And I think the reason that Brown started him on Fox is because Fox is a questionable three-point. He's an okay three-point shooter that he can help off of. Or you put OG on Castle, and it's the same thing, although Castle's usually at the top of the play. But you want OG able to roam and break that stuff up and get up with Wemby. And if OG is on Wemby and Cat is on one of those guys, then at least you have size coming over on that roll that can, again, if the lob isn't perfectly executed and Wemby doesn't get a free launch pad to the rim, you can break up enough of those plays to make them high risk. And the Spurs will make risky passes, and you will break some of them up and cause turnovers and get out in transition so that they can't set up their half-court defense, which is how you beat the Spurs. That right there is the recipe. You turn them over enough, you get out in transition, don't have to deal with Wemby in the half-court every possession, get up threes in transition. That's how you win, right? So I feel like Cat on Castle would be like it would be too much of an inversion of what the Knicks can do. I wouldn't go that direction unless I was forced to.
That's fair. Yeah, that makes sense. The other area on the Spurs offensively that became a big strength for them is offensive rebounding. 32% offensive rebound rate in the OKC series. Just for context, that would put them roughly top 5 in the league in the regular season. there's a lot of talk, and this kind of goes back and forth and related to the Knicks offense and the Josh Hart potential scenarios. Like, do you pull the plug? Let's say Hart's not shooting it, and he's just not kind of playing like he did in that last matchup at the Garden, and it's just not working offensively. So you pull him, you get the 5 shooting lineup in there. I do worry about what that does on their defensive side a lot. Offensively, on the offensive rebound scenario for the Spurs, I think that could be a real problem for them. And then just you mentioned the physicality on Castle. If Hart gets that matchup, how important that could be. So I think the Spurs offensive rebounding has become like a real weapon for them. Hart's obviously going to be a big key there. And if Cat is sort of not in his typical rebounding position, depending on like cross matching, or he's guarding Vassell, or he's got the Wemby matchup and he's out on the perimeter, like Hart's rebounding, and then Anunoby, who has shown willingness and an ability to have these stretches of like elite defensive rebounding. The Knicks are going to have, and then obviously Mitch's like grip strength and his ability to even corral a rebound, how that is going to be. But controlling the defensive glass is going to be huge, and Hart's obviously going to be a big piece of that. So I kind of surprised me how well the Spurs have been offensive rebounding, and I think the Knicks have to go into this series knowing that they're going to have to just win that rebounding battle pretty, not handily, but they're going to have to win it. And the possession battle that kind of comes along with that is going to be real key. So I don't know if you've had any thoughts on the offensive rebounding.
No, for sure. I think it's hard to keep, Wemby, even if you're boxing him out, can still reach over you. And so you have to commit a lot to him. And then you have guys, Keldon Johnson's amazing at all. Like he's a phenomenal offensive rebounder, strong and tough as heck, and will go at them hard. But even Castle's so athletic, because bodies are committed to Wemby, those guys come flying in. And look, Brunson's going to be vulnerable to this.
Had a few of them.
Dylan Harper, 100. Yeah, he started to do it, and he can fly too. So these the guards are so athletic. Vassell even, the guards are so athletic and jumping off 2 feet and going to get the ball. You have to be really, really tuned in if you're Jalen Brunson. Like, we know this will happen a few times this series where he just gets overrun. We saw it happen to SGA, like you said before. So you have to be really strong on that end. Look, and this is where Cat, it's such a superpower. He's just going to grab a lot of rebounds, and you have to just win the equation, right? Like, they're going to give up some, but Cat is such a vacuum when he's out there that I feel like they'll do their job there. But you have to be very attentive to their corner crashers, and Keldon Johnson in particular is such a monster doing that. But again, this is a reason why you Cat on Wemby, you theoretically Cat can handle that box. Now, if he's on the perimeter with Wemby, then he can't get in there necessarily. So that's the reason maybe not to have him there. But there aren't, unless there's a non-shooter on the floor, like a true non-shooter, he's going to be on the perimeter a little bit anyway. But it's and then on the other end, it's okay, the Knicks are going to get some offensive rebounds too, and who wins that battle? And Josh Hart's important for that, for the offensive rebounding. Right. No, I don't think anybody thinks Josh Hart shouldn't be part of this series. And if you do, you're dumb. It's just a question of how much Josh Hart and how well does he shoot? And is it 25 minutes or is it 35 minutes? It's somewhere in between. And part of that probably depends on how he shoots the basketball. But he's so important for so many reasons. And you saw it in that third quarter of that March 1st game. He's on loose, diving for loose balls, getting offensive boards, screening, rolling, passing. When it's going right, when he's in that rhythm, when he's moving quickly, when he has a little bit of confidence in the shot, we know how valuable he can be. It's again, he's the great variable, and he always is.
100% agree. We have a few super chats, so we do want to get to those. Any other kind of big picture, maybe micro areas that you want to get into?
I got sidetracked. I want to talk about that action for a second. And the one thing I would do if I'm Mitch and I'm guarding Wemby, you said get physical with him. I actually think getting physical with him was kind of the issue, because you almost are forced into a lock and trail when you're that physical. And to me, when you see that action coming and it's not very well disguised, it's pretty clear when they're going to it, I think Mitch needs to spin off the screen, just get in the middle of the floor. And if Wemby wants to fade to the corner, in my religion, we say, gesundheit hate. Have at it. Go for it. Wemby, kind of like Josh Hart in a very different way. Wemby probably will have a game or two where he hits a bunch of jumpers, and you might lose those games. When he is making threes, especially, and he's done it against the Knicks. They're very hard to beat. But I think you have to force him onto the perimeter and just like live with it for the most part. And I think the Knicks didn't do a good enough job on that action, just like saying, hey, I'm going to get inside the action. And if Wemby wants to fade off and get out for an open jumper, okay, I'll try to contest it. Don't jump for the pump fake, Mitch. He did that a bunch of times too. Stay on the floor, contest him best you can. I don't think he's going to win the series on the back of his jump shot. He's going to win the series by wrecking things at the rim on both ends.
Both ends.
If you can force him on the perimeter, that's the way to go. So, like, I think on that action, just be a little more intentional about forcing him to the perimeter, get inside the action, force him out. And I think that's good. I want to ask you, DJ, before we get to the super chats.
Yeah.
I think we've done a really good job in the previews kind of identifying the X factors of the series. And I want to ask you on the Spurs side, who is that X factor to you that could swing the series based on his performance or lack thereof?
Yeah, I mean, he's the one I have marked in my preview. To me, it's Castle, and I think it's Castle on both ends of the floor, defensively on Brunson, and then offensively. Like, I think it's when his turnovers, and what do you have, like 20 in the first 2 games of the OKC series. It becomes a real, like, he's gonna just on his own kind of wreck your offense type, like, mishandling of the basketball. And it kind of comes with the passing, also with his kind of a loose handle. I think his performance, is really just important. I think, if you want to just kind of squeeze both the young guards in there, I think Harper, you could sort of like talk about in the same way, but I think his, like, with Harper, it becomes, he's almost a little more, because he has such a lower responsibility level with like what he's asked to do. It's sort of like just attack and get to the rim. Like, his ability to finish against, like, if Jalen Brunson is guarding him, like, and let's say Cat is not necessarily in great rim protection position. Like, the Knicks can get in a lot of trouble if, like, Harper's getting downhill and he's playing off the second side and getting to the rim. I think for him as well, like, is just going to be a real key of, like, how well he's finishing. And he's a great finisher, generally speaking, especially for a young guard. And then, like, his mid-range jumper, which I thought was a real, like, surprise for me in that OKC series. Like, where is that in terms of, like, how another counter for how teams are defending him? But to me, it's like, if I want to cheat and put both those guards in there, like, how those young guards perform mostly on the offensive end, because if they perform at a high level, then this is a really tough series for the Knicks to win. But I do think it's asking a lot against this particular Knicks defense for both those guards to play really well. And if they don't, I think the Knicks they have the edge.
You freaking
I do
cheated.
think they're good enough to swing.
You totally cheated. You cheated, and then you took my answer because you cheated. Yeah, my answer is Dylan Harper.
Okay.
But I'll take a little bit of a different angle on why.
Okay.
One of the things that the Knicks, again, have kind of avoided, well, not really. The conference finals, the OKC Thunder would have hunted Brunson's man with such relentlessness with SGA that I would have gotten tired of it. And the Spurs just don't really have that ball handler to do that, because I actually think Brunson can kind of stay with Castle and use his strength against Castle's physicality. And I don't even care. I'm not, like, terrified of De'Aaron Fox on a switch, frankly. I think a lot of those possessions will end in a mid-range jumper for Fox, the way Fox is playing these days. And I can live with that. There's one guy who in 4 years from now will certainly be hunting Jalen Brunson on every possession. And he's showed a flash of it in that end of Game 7 in a fourth quarter against OKC, where, like, that guy who's making step-back threes and mid-range jumpers look easy with his size and his explosion and his finishing ability, that guy can be Dylan Harper. And if Dylan Harper is that person that he was in the fourth quarter that can really attack a defense and take over possessions and attack Jalen Brunson in particular, gives the Spurs a whole new element to their offense. And because I saw it in that fourth quarter, I wouldn't even consider, because your point, like, his usage isn't that high yet, and he's kind of like he's almost a luxury to this team coming off the bench right now, the way he's been used. But what he showed in that fourth quarter got me, like, on high alert. It's like, oh, that is like a different. That's a primary big guard that can make threes. That scares me in a whole different way. So I am really interested to see if we see that version of him. Because otherwise, I think Brunson can kind of hang defensively in the series. And I think, again, for the Knicks, like that's a huge matchup advantage. Like the Wemby pin down where his man screens for Wemby is a hard action for him to guard, and he got caught on that a few times. I think the guy guarding Wemby can do some things to figure that out, as we talked about. But like these guard-to-guard screens, Champagne's going to spray whatever. Again, I didn't think that his threes came off of like Sam Merrill type threes where like he spun off of a screen and got open. It was more like just a little inattentive in transition or like not a closeout thing. Like right, it wasn't like as much of like leveraging Brunson as defending the screener, because I don't think Champagne moves that well off the ball to create that kind of thing. I'm not even that worried about that, but I could be worried about Dylan Harper attacking him if it got to that point. So that's my X factor. Yeah. Like, can Dylan Harper take another leap here? Because I think it's all pretty clear that this is the player he's going to be in very soon. But they're in the play. The Knicks might have caught them just early enough where he's not quite ready to be that guy yet. You know?
Yeah. It's just the one thing with like Harper, Castle, and obviously Wemby, like they're just fearless and obviously like wisdom beyond their years. But it's, to me, it's like, and I think Vassell was a little older, more of a veteran, but like they just have drafted these obviously incredibly talented players that have elite makeup. And obviously Harper lineage with his dad, Ron Harper, playing in the NBA. Just the moment doesn't seem too big for them. And I think there was this theory, and it's been put to bed at this point, that eventually these young guards are just not going to have the ability in these big games to continue to put forth these performances to get them to the next round and next round and next round. But, you know, I don't think if you're a Knicks fan, you can count on them being a little, you know, wide-eyed in the moment. Like this team is just not going to do that. The Knicks are going to have to beat them because they play better than them. And obviously the Knicks are incredibly capable of doing that. But I don't think would be a scenario where the Spurs like show up to MSG on a game 3 and like, you know, P starts running down their leg. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's a testament.
I don't think they're going to panic, but I think you can force them into a lot of mistakes. I think you can force them into mistakes that you wouldn't normally see on a final stage because of their youth. And even kind of because of their fearlessness also. Like they are so fearless that they will try to do crazy things sometimes. And that gets to like the turnover battle, which again, I think if the Knicks can turn them over 15 to 20 times in a game, they're in really good shape. Agreed.
And obviously the Knicks have been kind of ramping that area up. You know, deflections in general have just been higher under Mike Brown. If you track that with like the previous several years under Tibbs, the activity and the handsiness on the defensive end has just been much higher. And that's a huge thing for them kind of moving forward here. We do have some super chats, so I do thank everyone for tapping in and sending those along. We're going to start with was this the first one? Yes. So Matt G 3344. What's up, Matt? Thinking of the New Year's Eve game, last few minutes, New York got cooked by that 3-man pick and roll. How should they counter it? I'm going to be completely honest. I have not watched that game back. In my mind, I'm not recalling that 3-man action being, or I'm sure there was one. I'm just not able to sort of picture it in my head right now. Do you have anything on that one?
So was Spain action?
Sounds like it, right? Typical what you would see in like kind of a Spain look as a 3-man.
Let's take it at face value. If they run Spain and let's say it's Champagny setting the back screen, and it's Castle handling, let's say, and Wemby rolling, tough action to guard, really tough action to guard. You have to switch it. And Brunson has to switch onto Castle, and whoever's guarding the ball handler needs to switch to Champagny popping, and that is how you handle that action. It's how the Knicks always handle that action.
The big drops. Yeah.
The big drops below the screen,
below the roll,
to again avoid the Wemby roll gravity. I think that that's how you handle it. I think the Knicks have done generally a good job of handling it that way. I think Spain has not been a huge weapon of late, certainly not in the playoffs. I expect that they would be prepared for the action against the Spurs. Great question, Matt. Thank you.
Agreed. All right. Jeffrey Glynn. What's up, Jeffrey?
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate the contribution, my man.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Knicks have faced a lot of what Spurs offer in pieces. Elite perimeter defenders in Atlanta, pre-switching heavy schemes to keep Embiid out of the action, 5 on Hart in Cleveland. Now it's time to put it all together. I think this is a fantastic comment because we haven't really talked about the pre-switching, which is a hallmark of how to keep Wemby out of action. That's a huge piece of it. I think you're right. The Knicks have sort of like gone through the gauntlet here. I mean, after basically not losing a game. They've gone through the gamut of defensive kind of schemes in these playoffs. And I think it speaks to the Knicks just being a team where, yeah, Cat's got a wing on them. They kind of know where to go, and they know where to go to it fast. If Cat has the center on them, obviously, as I talked about, get right into the two-man action with Brunson. Their ability to sort of see whatever the defense is giving them and then have the solution it's like instantaneous. They just get right to it. And I think that is the most impressive piece of it because, you talk about the 5 on Hart in Cleveland. That did not get off to a great start in terms of like how the Knicks were playing against that in games 1 and then for, a portion of game 2. But they still were able to figure it out beyond the Hart making threes. Eventually, I think they just are able to flow into offense that's like movement centric, Hart screening off the ball, really important. Like they just know kind of where to go regardless of like where the defense is kind of loading up or defending them. And it speaks to, I think, a truly elite offense. They're obviously going to face the ultimate test in this round, but I can't imagine, to Jeffrey's point, a better sort of like preparation than what they've faced. They faced a varied defensive schemes in these playoffs, and should be really well schooled, regardless of what San Antonio is going to throw at them. It's just going to have to be execution, but they're going to know what to do, regardless of what San Antonio is going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a great framing of this climb. They faced two teams that really didn't have the personnel or the will to consistently put their centers on Josh Hart to start the first 2 rounds. I know Atlanta went to it at some point. Philadelphia never. They did very little of it because Embiid was so hobbled. And Nick Nurse is very scared of Josh Hart. So those guys never really did it. And then you get to Cleveland and they're doing it. And it was obvious they were going to do it from the start. And they have good personnel for it in some ways and 2 very good defensive bigs. And it did bother the Knicks a little bit. And I would say something that I haven't had a chance to really put out there, but like, I didn't think the Knicks solved that particular challenge against Cleveland. I thought they got out in transition so often against a really bad transition defense and a turnover team like that. I almost didn't matter. It was such a bludgeoning. That's still going to present a challenge. And if this was always going to be the case where like this finals run was going to have to go through this coverage. And now you have like the center on Hart, the ultimate boss of a center on Hart with Wemby being able to roam. So it does seem apropos, right? Like, this is the challenge they now have to solve, whether it's with Josh Hart and as well without Josh Hart. And they should play some 5 out in this series. And they will go to it if they have to go to it, as Mike Brown showed against Cleveland. If it's not working and Josh Hart is hesitant and it doesn't come around in the third quarter like it did in March, he will close with Landry Shamet. And they can close with Landry Shamet. And then the Spurs have to make a decision. And what I think they'll do is they'll put Wemby on OG, if I had to guess. And the Knicks know what to do with that. But that's a different, that'll be an interesting equation if and when that happens.
Agreed. Thank you, Jeffrey. Really appreciate that. Hush Z, what's up, Hush? Wanted to throw y'all a question. Thank you. Let's hear it. If we lose the series, talk about bringing the vibes down. If we lose the series, would it be because of self-inflicted wounds, or would it be because the Spurs are better? Okay, so I guess I'll take the first crack at this. I do think, and maybe we'll get to predictions later, this is for me at least, and I know I kind of said the same thing in the last series, so just maybe don't listen to anything I'm saying. I think this is a toss-up series in terms of the basketball, the talent, how well these teams are playing. Also dependent on like who they play. I think that is a factor here. I think this is their two. I think the Knicks have maybe where you can give them a slight edge. I do think in terms of like advantages, he's just like charted them. I think the Knicks might come out a little bit of ahead. So maybe the Knicks do have a slight edge in this series, but I think it's close enough to where if you actually watch this thing play out, I think it can go in either direction when you actually see them play each other in a series. So I will say if the Knicks lose the series, it will be because, Wemby was an MVP level player. Their guards were really hard to sort of contain. And, the Knicks didn't quite solve maybe the Wemby roaming and kind of wrecking things on the defensive end. So I think it would be because the Spurs were just better. And they're talented enough to where they can just beat the Knicks. I mean, that is just a real thing. I know there's a lot of confidence, and Knicks fans should be confident. But this is a awesome basketball team with a player that is just, as we've been talking about, I mean, he's just a massive problem, and he can win a series on his own. That's how good he is.
Yeah, I have come to trust this team, as in the Knicks, so much implicitly now. Like, I trust their decision making. I trust their coaches' decision making. I think they will do everything in their power to solve the problem. And if they lose, it'll because the problem was unsolvable. And it is probably the case that Wemby will get to a point, if he stays healthy, that he will be unsolvable. And he has enough talent around him now to become unsolvable. And if those guards step up to a point where he can, rely on them to be solid and to be smart, then this team is like, theoretically the next dynasty. That is out there. It is a possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen. The NBA now, there's been 8 finalists in the last 4 years. I mean, it's as more parity than ever, even including the late 70s, which there was a lot of parity. Like, this is unprecedented parity in the league. There are a lot of reasons for that: salary cap, injuries, etc. But it is a possibility that this is going to be the next great team, and it might start now. And I think that would be the reason the Knicks lose the series. I don't think the Knicks are going to kill themselves here. I think they have grown. I think they've graduated. I think this team is clicking on all cylinders. They have all veterans in their primes who have come into such an understanding of their abilities and how they complement each other that I cannot imagine a scenario where they self-implode here to the point of losing this series. I think it would be because the Spurs are elevating above and beyond what the Knicks even can be. And that is a possibility. I don't know how many super chats we have yet. The question is it going to happen? But maybe we'll get to the predictions at the very end.
Yeah.
You got more, TJ, or is that it?
We got plenty of it. It's a shocker. Previewing the NBA Finals, popular amongst Knicks fans. That's who would have thought.
Hey,
next one, Kevin Danishevsky. What's up, Kev? Benjy, this one's for you. Benjy, feels like the Spurs have had more success
with a Y, Kevin. With a Y, Kevin. Not a dog.
I didn't even catch that. Of course you would. It's your name. It feels like the Spurs have had more success over the years without Wemby versus us than with Wemby. New Year's Eve game in 22, the Mamu game, Champagne game. Man. Coincidence?
I don't know about a quit. I don't think. As I've talked about, I think the Knicks have more solutions against Wemby than most teams. So I think they are capable of outplaying the Spurs even with Wemby on the floor. I don't think that that when he's off the floor, the Spurs suddenly have a different advantage than when he's on the floor that allows them to play better. That I don't think. I think that's totally random. Like Mamu outburst and Champagne outburst being great examples of unsustainable, just like small sample size theater. So, yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that the Knicks have played well with Wemby on the floor because I think the Knicks have some things they can throw at him. I do think it's a coincidence that the Spurs have played better without Wemby on the floor.
That well put. I would actually agree wholeheartedly with that. Thank you, Kevin. Really appreciate it. Robert Cross checking in. What's up, Robert? Thank you for the contribution here. DJ Benjy, two of the very best. Thank you, Robert. What impact do you think the prophecy of hashtag 53 wins will have on the series? Hashtag 53 wins. I mean, it's a powerful prophecy. I'm not the most religious or even spiritual type, but I will say if anyone would have that sort of reach, I think it'd be Robert Cross. I do. I think Robert Cross.
Are you saying that if you were religious, you would be worshiping Robert Cross? Is what you're saying? Like he would be he'd be the guy.
He'd be the guy. I'd be at his altar, bended knee. Of course, yes. Robert Cross has that charisma, gravitas. Listen, whatever it takes, right? I mean, I think Robert he's been watching this team for a long time. I've been asked him that. I can't imagine, what he's been kind of his emotions and his feelings of like any Knicks fan that's been kind of watching this team for years and years and maybe don't quite remember the 70s teams, but came in a little bit after that and just have had a lot of heartache and just like desperately want this thing. Robert obviously does, and I think we all do, but yeah, whatever it takes, man. I'll use your 53 wins. If it helps us get there, push it across the finish line, man. That's enough for me.
I will say there is some there's some supernatural stuff going on, like NBA Zodiac. These are the two. Have you seen this, Deej?
Oh yeah, well the kind of the Knicks are like pretty well aligned. Is that the
Knicks and the Spurs are the best aligned starting lineups in the league according to NBA Zodiac, and here they are.
Yeah, well, that's pretty amazing.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
The only question I have for Robert is like Mitch is his guy as is known.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious what Robert thinks about this situation, which I think we haven't talked about a lot because, like, what is there to say? Either he's effective or he's not. And the Knicks, here's what I think is worth discussing. What if he's not? What if he can't really be effective, which I think is a possibility? I hope it's not.
Oh.
Where do the Knicks go? Is it Huck Porty? Is it just small? Because I think it's small. I'll go first. I don't think Huck Porty sees the light of day in the series. Maybe a minute here or there. I would guess they just go to OG at the 5 and add Clarkson or to the rotation a little bit more so that they play that way. But I don't think it's Huck Porty.
I think that's where they would go first. But there's no way you wouldn't see Huck Porty because based on just Cat's foul woes, like he would play.
I would just try to play against Cornette.
Yeah, that's completely reasonable. Yes.
Yeah.
Look, I think there's just real quick on the Mitch thing. I know I've kind of got out over my skis a little bit where I ended Mitch's season kind of 5 seconds after the news broke. Maybe not my finest moment. I will say I am a little sort of confused by this idea of like, of course he's going to play. Of course he's going to be fine. He doesn't need to control his pinky or his hand because he doesn't shoot and he can't make free throws anyway. I just think like grabbing a basketball is important, and especially when you're a rebounder, and like catching lobs are important, and like grappling for position under the rim is important. When you can't use your right hand or it's compromised, that's a real thing. And I think even if Mitch is healthy, even if Mitch is cleared to play, I think we are going to have to just see him in game action to have any sort of confidence that he is going to be effective, because it's a real possibility that he is cleared, but then quickly is proven to be ineffective based on the wrap, the brace, the whatever it is, the pain. So I think it's a real concern. Wish we weren't dealing with it. I hope Mitch is like mentally doing okay. I think there's been like, he's obviously talked openly about it. Just hope he's okay. And I hope for his sake, that he's able to get out there and not let whatever happened, like ruin his NBA finals. Because I think that would just be really a real shame. Not forget what he means for the team, but just for him personally, I just think I just would hate for him to go out this way.
It's such a freaking bummer.
Yeah.
Like what a story this guy was. Like one of the longest tenured players in the league. It's so incredibly unlikely that through the front office shakeups and the coaching changes and the whole team being a new team around him and his second round pick and didn't go to college, and the chances of this guy still being on this team are 0. And yet he's here and he finally gets to the finals, and like, God, this is just like, come on. Like,
I know.
It's really nagging at me. I have nothing else to say about it, but
I feel the same way. So same. So hopefully he's good to go, and he's out there and he's doing his thing. All right. Thank you, Robert. Jay Vertical. What's up, Jay? Thank you again. Appreciate you. We know Wemby will be on Hart and they won't change that all series. How about a world where Cat could be on Castle and Keldon and make them shooters? Film says we can out physical them, play our game. So Jay, we actually talked about both these areas. I mentioned Cat on Castle as a option here to switch to pick and roll and sort of like limit the value that the Spurs have been getting out of that Castle Wemby pick and roll. I think Benji's counter is like that's just putting Cat in a dangerous scenario with like fouls and just containing the basketball on those Castle drives. And Benji, you said you would maybe consider it if the Knicks were down in the series, but you wouldn't necessarily kind of start or go to that pretty early based on sort of like the downside effects of maybe cross-matching on Cat with Castle, but Cat on Keldon Johnson. I think that's a really clean sort of like option for Cat to play some minutes guarding him. And then obviously OG on Wemby. That makes sense in the 15 minutes that Keldon Johnson's going to play in the game.
Absolutely. The only thing I would add with Castle, which I said already, is I think the Knicks have such good matchups on him that I want to keep those matchups on him. I think that's a valuable place to go. But look, maybe you never know. Cat on Castle could be interesting. I get it. I get the idea. It's interesting, and yeah, maybe they go to it. We'll see. Thanks, Jay Vertical, and congratulations on your graduation. I don't know when that picture's from, but you graduated, so that's good stuff. Hush Z,
good for you, man. Graduation.
Take out the defense. Yeah. Do you see Wemby as the same tier scorer as D. Mitch / Maxey, or even anyone on that squad like Fox or Castle? Interesting question. I don't think so. Wemby. If you just are looking purely on offense, and you're talking about scorer, then I think no. Now Wemby has an offensive impact that goes well beyond his scoring, just because of his roll gravity and his rebounding gravity, and the fact that he's 13 feet tall. That obviously Mitchell and Maxey don't have. But I would not say he's in the same tier as a scorer as those two guys, even though he can go all for 40 if he makes jumpers. But it's dependent on him making jumpers, I think, for him to get to that. And it's not as consistent, obviously, as those two guys. I don't know. DJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think where you're seeing Wemby, when he gets in trouble, is when he has a big, you saw this with Hartenstein, where he just gets into isolation mode and his handle just isn't at the point yet to even against a guy like Hartenstein to generate that space and to get a clean look. Where he becomes really dangerous is when they run him off like some like movement of kind of away screens where he's kind of running into the catch, flare screens where he's just like, that's where a guy like Hartenstein, I think Cat would struggle with this. Mitch, he's much tougher to guard. Even if he's shooting jumpers, that's the stuff that I think scares you more than if he's just trying to get into his like ISO bag. And that I think Cat can handle that. I think Mitch can handle that. Obviously OG can handle that. That's where I think he's still limited with the ball handling. Obviously you can get underneath his dribble and kind of impact him in that regard. So yeah, I don't think he's quite at those guys level yet offensively, but yeah, you mentioned the roll gravity right now is at it almost broke the Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, that's how elite it was. And Castle can throw a lob. Fox can as well. So they do have some guys that can just get the ball up there and have some good chemistry with him, but not quite on the level of those guys.
I think the Knicks have faced, I think you could argue the Knicks have faced two more explosive offenses than the Spurs. Philadelphia, when they're fully healthy and, when Embiid's actually going, there's a lot of talent on that roster. And then, Cleveland with Harden and Mitchell and the bigs, like tough with all the shooting they have around those guys. the Spurs are an interesting team. It's more raw, and it is more physical, but they don't have the level of scorers. It's not as simple for them to generate shots necessarily. Like, I think the Knicks have a lot of answers on defense for the Spurs, and I think maybe more than anything, because I don't. It's not always going to be easy for them to score on Wemby. But the reason I feel good about this series is more because I think they have a lot of solutions on defense against the Spurs offense, which is still very much like a work in progress to being what I think they hope it'll be in 2-3 years based on their personnel. I don't think they have a ton of shooting yet around it, as much as they're going to want. I think at some point, like, De'Aaron Fox will turn into a more of a shooter than a third point guard that in 2 years they won't need, right? So it's this is not the finished product of the team, and yet they're in the finals. So I think the Knicks have a lot of answers on the defensive end, and partially, Hush Z, to your point, because they don't have that ball handling scorer unless, as I mentioned earlier, Dylan Harper turns into that just in time, and I'm hoping he does not, for our sake.
Yes. Thank you, Hush. Appreciate it. David Crockett checking in. What's up, David? How much is this a
Good
bench
question.
series for the Knicks? How deep will Brown go? Well, we saw he's going to go 9 for sure, because it's Shamet, Alvarado, McBride, Mitch, assuming he's healthy. Like, those are locks. Clarkson, maybe he gets minutes. Or I do think this could be a scenario where you can go look at it two ways. You can go, listen, we've had so much rest. Like, let's just play our top 8 or whatever, 9, if we want to go that deep, and we can have.
And there's more rest built in. Every travel day is an extra day in the finals.
Right. So you can go look at it that way. Like, we're just going to play our best guys, or do we say, listen, we can go 10 deep early in this series, and we can just systematically wear this team down that has shown some attrition in the last series. I thought Wemby for points, Castle, specifically those two, lots being asked of those guys. And I think you can look at this and, like, we can wear this team down by going 9-10 deep into our bench, because we trust our 5 that we will be bringing off the bench to play well and to start wearing this team down. I think you can go either direction, but wherever way you go, Nick's got 4 or 5 guys that you can trust in a series. Clarkson, I worry about guarding the ball against some of these guys, but I think Alvarado, Shamet, of course, McBride, like, these guys can guard. I think they'll be okay against any of those Spurs guards and keep the ball in front as best they can and do a pretty good job with that. So I think the bench, to your point, David, will be a big key. I just don't know if it's 9 or 10, but it's going to be a big key for the Knicks.
Somehow we've arrived at the point where the Knicks are the deeper team in every playoff series they've played, which seems credit front office, credit Mike Brown, maybe a demerit to the prior coach, but we won't get into that. And that's not totally fair, but I'm really not going to get into that. I'm really not going to get into that. It's a little fair. It's not totally fair. But yeah, I think because of that, and again, you're also the case that you are the fresher team, and I think you do try to take advantage of that as a deeper and fresher team. Is, I think, playing more, at least in game 1, makes sense. I would guess, I don't know, 9 or 10 doesn't really matter that much to me, but certainly 9. And I think you can, again, because this matchup for our bench, which is small, because you can match up with the Spurs small guards, I think you can play them a lot, and I think you should. I think it is a favorable matchup for them, like Cleveland was. They've played well. I have a funny feeling that Deuce is going to have a big series. I feel like he's had a couple of games. That's crazy.
Yeah, he's had a couple of games.
He's had a couple games in the playoffs, but it's been pretty inconsistent, I would say. I have a good feeling about him. Really coming into his own here in the finals. I think he's certainly fearless. He doesn't care. I think they will definitely play 9, and Clarkson's a possibility. And depending on Mitch's health, obviously also, because if Mitch is not really effective, Alcaporti probably gets some time, like we talked about. Plus, if you go small, you probably have to throw in another body, so that might be Clarkson.
Yep.
So we'll see.
Agreed. Thank you, David.
John Leary, I'll assume Mitch will play. If he doesn't, what do you do? Huck 40 meaningful minutes. Hashtag meaningful minutes. Doesn't feel like the answer. Up Towns and OG minutes to 40s. We discussed a lot of this already, but it's maybe the new angle here is, do you just up the minutes? And I think if Mitch doesn't play, Towns and OG are going to play big minutes. I think that is right. Towns is dependent on his foul trouble if he can play 40 minutes. And OG, you got to be careful with OG. I hate to say it. Even in the finals, the way OG plays and with his, hamstrings, frankly, 40 minutes just scares me. It just does. It does. OG's hamstring goes in game 1. This is all for naught, probably. So can't have it. So yeah. I would try not to do that, frankly, if I can avoid it. And I would try to get away with a few Huck 40 minutes and, match OG to Wembanyama as much as possible. Wemby might play 40. I don't think so, though. So it'll be that's a tough, to your point though, John, it's a tough equation. Like how do you keep OG away from 40 minutes? But I'd be nervous to do it. I would
look, I mean, he's had 2 hamstring injuries in the playoffs. They both come in the fourth quarters, late in games. So that doesn't mean causation, but there might be something with fatigue and just the breakdown of those muscles and it leading to something. So I actually agree with you. I do worry about them going to that number, though. I think there's probably going to be a game or two where he gets there, but not something I maybe want to start.
Maybe you go to Yabusele at the 5.
Yabu?
Next.
John, a couple more. John, I was not ready for Yabu callback. Was not prepared for it. Did you have a preference for OKC or San Antonio? Is this a heavy Shamet series? Feels like more of a Brunson series than Cat. Does Clarkson get phased out? It's funny. I was thinking about this during Game 7, where I went into the game thinking pretty confidently I'd want to see the Spurs, and then by somewhere in the third quarter, I'm like, I just don't think Oklahoma City has enough to get through another series. Even if they could figure out a way to get through Game 7, assuming those Mitchell and J-Dub don't come back, I don't know how they crawl across another finish line. So I changed my mind sort of like in that fourth quarter, I kind of want to see Oklahoma City pull this one out. And I think I think San Antonio is a liver matchup right now, which is kind of where I still stay on that, though it's close. I know you were on with Fred. I don't know if you talked about this, but maybe give a quick minute on your preference, kind of where it was leading to this one.
Yeah, I was always San Antonio. Going back to the beginning of the playoffs, I was like, there's a road here because San Antonio plays OKC so well, where I think the Knicks really have a chance to win the championship. And it's because I thought that San Antonio might, and I predicted them to beat OKC. But yeah, as OKC, thank you. Pat myself on the back. But as OKC lost bodies and just looked worn out, and it's 2 years of a lot of basketball for them. I started to waver, but I still think I preferred San Antonio because OKC, again, SGA going at Brunson is terrifying. The Knicks just don't really have a great answer for that. Plus, what they can throw at Brunson is unique. I mean, it's between Dort, Caruso, Case and Wallace. I mean, it's just ridiculous what the perimeter defense they can throw. So as much as I think the Knicks could probably hold their own against OKC, I think it would have been a good series. I think the San Antonio matchup's cleaner. I think the worst vulnerabilities that the Knicks have are limited a bit against San Antonio. They don't have the guy to attack Brunson 100%, and the Knicks can deal with their ball handlers, I think, in a way that they couldn't deal with SGA. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and look, OKC, whether it's Holmgren, Dort, they have I think easier or better matchups for the Cat cross match.
Yes, 100%, 100%.
Which is a big deal because we've talked about the Spurs just don't. It's an area.
Dort is a perfect guy for that, and you can. And I think Case and Wallace is probably to guard Brunson full court is tough. and you put Chet on Hart, and it's a lot to deal with for the Knicks. I think they're kind of tailor made to guard the Knicks, and Wemby is his own dude, but I wouldn't say the Spurs are tailor made to guard the Knicks. There's things the Knicks can do, as we've discussed. Thanks, John.
Yep. Yeah. And then quickly, you mentioned Shaman series we talked about. I think obviously.
Yeah, sorry.
No, just real quick. I think he's going to be the guy if Hart's going to be not phased out, but if his minutes are cut a little bit, you want to go 5 true shooters. Shamit's going to be the number one guy coming off the bench. His ability to guard the basketball.
Or Deuce. It can be Deuce.
Could be Deuce. I think it's going to be Shamit though, especially because I think the defensive side.
But Shamit can't never miss a shot. He will miss some.
He might miss some. I'll take 80%. I don't know about 90. He doesn't have to go 90% from 3.
No.
Give us 80%. I'll take 75. I think Clarkson, I don't know about phased out. I don't think it's a great matchup for him. And 10 guys is a lot of guys to play. And we saw his minutes. I think his minutes kind of sort of got cut a little bit as the series went along against Cleveland. So maybe
for sure. Shamit replaced him in the rotation because Shamit was out for a minute and Shamit replaced him. I will say right here that Clarkson will have a moment at some point. I don't know when it will be, but I would think he will have a moment. But I don't think he'll be a consistent like 10 plus minute a game guy in the series. Thank you, John.
Fair. Thank you, John. One more quick one from John. Any shot they can tire Wemby out as the series goes on? Yes. I think it's a huge key. Look, I think the end of that game 7 was such an emotional release and just moment for that whole team, but Wemby specifically. I just think it's a hard, even though they have several days off, I think it's a hard turnaround for him on just the emotional side of things. Obviously, never dealing with the international stuff has been key for him, prepping him for this sort of gauntlet in the NBA, but it's nothing quite like it. And then we've seen him struggle with fatigue in just the last series. So I do think in the next year, a little more physical, a little more stout, a little stronger, a lot stronger even than OKC's front line. So I do think it's a real area the Knicks can exploit, especially if the minute's going to be 35 to 38 minutes for him. I think the Knicks absolutely can and should wear him down. I think they need to. I'll say that. I think they need to wear him down to win the series. Yeah,
and part of the key there is
thank you, John.
How significantly the Knicks can win the non-Wemby minutes, and how quickly does Mitch Johnson have to go back to him. There were games in the OKC series where he had to go back to him really quick because and look, Cornette's a good player, and I actually think Cornette will probably be fine against the Knicks. I don't think the Knicks are going to go out there and like dominate when Cornette's out there. But you do have to force Johnson's hand a little bit and get Wemby back in the game because he can tire. He is 7'5". It's just like getting up and down is hard. Is harder for him than most. And he might just be a true alien and it might not matter, but I think it is, to DJ's point, like a key. You have to hit him and you have to beat him up and you have to work him and you got to box him out and all that. Just every bang is like, is every knock is an advantage. So I think that's something that the Knicks have to focus on.
Agreed. All right, John, appreciate you. Nicole, Dean, Julia, this might be the first one that I'm seeing, at least from Nicole. So thank you for checking into the X's and O show. Appreciate that.
Except that it's Dean.
This is definitely not Nicole. This is the middle name. Why did I think it was the first name? It's the one in the middle because there's 3 names.
Confusing.
There, right?
Yeah, it's a little confusing. So what is going on there?
Maybe it's all 3. People
they share a YouTube account and they named it after themselves.
Nicole, Dean, and Julie. This is like the parents are like, listen, you all got one. I'm not taking more than a second to think about it. This is the name.
I see a Mickey Mouse picture with 2 looks like 2 young daughters of some kind and 2 parents with, is that Mickey or Minnie? Hard to see.
That's a Minnie. That's a Minnie right there.
It's a Minnie. So I'm wondering, but I assume that it could be Nicole and Julie are the daughters there, and Dean is the dad, and Dean named his YouTube name after his daughters and put himself in the middle. Is that Is that a possibility? Honestly, it's really perhaps the most interesting topic that we've covered tonight, and I look forward to Dean / Nicole / Julia clarifying this for us at some point. But he's asking a question, so we should answer it.
Yes, we should answer it. All right. Hi, Dean here. Bounce back series from 3 for JB. Listen, we talked about his 3-point shot not being there in the postseason. Benji, you talked about the importance of the pull-up 3 against this particular team. I mentioned 5 of 12 during the regular season on pull-up 3s in the 3 matchups. It's going to be a huge area to exploit. The shot's going to be there. I think with JB, with that particular shot, I don't worry about the volume or a confidence thing. But if it's not there, then I do think it's a pretty big swing to the San Antonio side. If that 3 is not falling and he does maybe hesitate a little bit to take it, like I said, the shot's going to be there. They're going to probably guard it similar to how they guarded SGA second half of that series, where they're just not going to be as aggressive putting 2 to the ball. They're going to ask the point of attack defender, mostly Castle, to get over the top of the screen. And they're going to be in some sort of drop. And that shot is going to be there with a rear contest. It's not an easy shot. I think it's underrated how difficult that shot is when the guy's kind of breathing down the back of your neck. But it's a shot he's made 1,000 times in his career. And if he makes 35% of them on decent volume, I think it goes a long way to put the Knicks over the top.
Agreed, 100%. Talked about it earlier. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate it. Jeff Talon, what's up, Jeff? How can we prevent their 3 guards from consistently getting dribble penetration if one of them will be guarded by Brunson? Will he guard a forward? So I think he starts on Champagny. So I do think, you worry about Champagny as a screener and Champagny in transition, which we've touched on. Against a closeout, I think Champagny's more of a kind of a Merrill reload and kind of sidestep, get that 3 off. I don't necessarily stress about him in terms of a closeout scenario. Look, I think the Knicks, if you asked me in December, I'd be a little more worried about it, although I thought they guarded in the cup game pretty well. But that was around the time where the Knicks were having some trouble kind of keeping the ball in front. They've just been better since then and have been really good in this postseason with really not overly aggressive, but some really systematic and prioritizing where the help is going to be and keeping the ball to the side, shrinking the floor. They're just a more well-schooled, well-disciplined, and playing with a better edge, guarding the ball. And I think it's going to, if they were going to have a chance to really guard these guys, I think they're at a really good spot with the energy and the health with their wings. They're in a good spot. I think they're going to do a pretty good job with it.
Yeah, and just to talk out the way I think they'll start, I think it'll be Hart on Castle, OG on Fox, Bridges on Vassell, Brunson on Champagny, Cat on Wemby to start. And I think that Brunson, before he starts on Harper, Fox, or Castle, will guard Vassell. So if there is a lineup with the 3 guards plus Vassell plus the big, I think he'll guard Vassell. So I think they will not start Brunson a lot on those guards, but I do think he'll switch on to them, and I actually think he'll be okay, with the caveat that Dylan Harper has the potential, I think, to render that untenable, but we'll see.
Yep.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Zachary Gibson, what's up, Zach? Thank you so much for the generous contribution and the kind words, because I just wanted to say that I am so glad you two break these games down for us. I appreciate all of KFS, but the work you do is what truly makes me believe we have the best content in all of the NBA. Wow. I want you on more post games. That sounds like a directive. Sounds like that needs to go right to the man that makes all the decisions, Mr. Claudio, Mr. Macri. Make note, we've been told to go on to more post games, though we have been consistently on these playoff post games, which has been a great thing. I think we've been there for most of them, with Jeff J breaking it down as well, doing a good job here.
Hashtag KFS Union.
But yes, listen, I do think the team we have here is like, just it's 10 seconds on it, is really special. And it's kind of like grown. I was thinking about this, where it's grown from like when I started and you started. We just keep adding talent, and it's been fun to see the channel and the brand grow. And I know I'm just thrilled to be part of it. It's been a blast.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate it. Thanks, Zach. I will I am scheduled. We'll see. I'm scheduled to be on the post game at least for games 1, 3, and 4. I think DJ is scheduled for game 2.
Correct.
So you're gonna get us. So good for you, Zach. And good for us. Iceman Sham. Thank you for your contribution, my friend. What's up, guys? My question is, Brunson and Shea are two different players, but since the Spurs had some success guarding Shea, what would be the Knicks and JB's approach in getting good offense this series? Iceman Sham, I implore you to go back to, I don't know, the 5 to 15 minute mark of this very show, and you'll get many of the answers to your question. But I will say, just like kind of summarizing what we talked about, because you asked and you're a good guy and you contributed, and we appreciate it. I think Brunson's ability to shoot the pull-up 3 off the dribble is a difference. The Knicks have better, quicker shooting around Brunson than Shea does, which is a difference. And the Knicks have offensive rebounding prowess that may keep Wemby from just really roaming for the entirety of a possession and may force him to retreat to a rebounder, assuming Mitch is somewhat healthy. Those are 3 big differences to me between the Thunder challenge and the Knicks challenge.
Yep. And then I think, look, Shea's a better player than Brunson, but what Brunson does better is that he's a better relocator off the ball. He's a better mover off the ball in general. So while Shea can get really stationary, Brunson it's obviously highlighted. Yeah.
That's such a good point, Deej. Yeah. That's such a good point. We haven't Brunson will just go into get action after get action. He'll move and really Shea, he kind of just goes and gets the ball from the top of the key.
Mm-hmm.
Probably another thing he needs to kind of get better at, I would say, if he needs to get better at anything, for a 2-time MVP and a champion already. And he had a great game 7 and all that, but it feels like he is very limited in how he approaches creative advantages. And maybe that's some coaching too, but he feels like he could get more. And the Knicks will do that stuff. Brunson's gonna run off a bunch of different stuff to get the ball, which will at least keep it a little bit, keep Wemby off balance a little bit in how he's containing. Whereas Shea was so predictable in ways, how he's going to contain.
Agreed. Yeah, and then Hart as a screener, and a lot of those really important. Albino Rhino, what's up, Albino Rhino? What's going on? Started watching the Knicks in 23-24. So a very spoiled Knicks fan here, but you guys are fantastic. Learned so much from these streams. Ton of fun. Thanks, man. I'm a Knicks fan from the 23-24 gauntlet of a season. I mean, that was the metal bat season. What a ride that was. Happy you're still with us. And yes, you've had a lot of winning in those 3 seasons, and hopefully we culminate it with a ring, the championship. How amazing would that be?
I just dropped my phone on my big toe. Hurt so bad. Albino Rhino, a legendary name and a fantastic message. Also, to think there are Knicks fans who have only experienced winning is absolutely bonkers.
Yep.
But listen, all albino rhinos should be so fortunate. We are there for the albino rhinos, the endangered species that they are, and we hope that they continue to thrive in going forward. Thank you for your message.
Thank you so much.
Delumery 6749. Thank you for your contribution. Things are getting punchy out here. How much can Mitch change the series? Do you have big expectations for him now with his pinky? I implore you, Delumery, to go to, I have no idea where it is in the show, but let's say the 37-minute mark.
Folks, we're almost 2 hours in. Benjy's like, I'm not saying it again. I'm too tired.
No.
Do it.
Yeah. Yeah. How much can Mitch change a series? A lot. He's the offensive rebounding is very important against Wemby. We discussed getting in behind him to force him to stay on the body, and that opens up the whole mid range if he can force that. And then defensively, someone who can guard Wemby and bother Wemby, length to deal with Wemby, and everything else he does on defense on an everyday basis. Yeah, Mitch is like really important to this team, which is why we're just all praying and pretending that he's fine.
Exactly.
Except for Deej, who thinks this season.
And as we know, it's not a pinky; it's a metacarpal, which is I learned the long bone leading to the pinky, which is different injury. But also Mitch, as I talked about, him and Brunson screening action 2-man game has been elite. Maybe the next best source of half court offense in terms of points per possession, 1.22 when those guys are when he's screening for Brunson. So stuff there. Yeah. A Beekstein? Is it a Beekstein? All right.
It might be. You know what? I'm gonna counter it. I think it's probably Abe Eckstein. If I had to guess, it's the first and last name. Eckstein. I know a lot of Ecksteins. They're lovely. I mean, I have no idea if this. You know what?
Yeah, I think you're.
I think it is Abe Eckstein. I don't know if I know this person. I do know a lot of Ecksteins though. Is that interesting to you, DJ?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. Abe, did you watch the press conference today? I saw a nervous energy from Hart and Brown that I haven't seen. Yeah, I saw bits and pieces, so I didn't see the whole thing. I didn't pick up on anything from Hart other than like his usual, like, crack a joke here or there. So I will say when Brown was talking about Mitch, I did sense some consternation there. I didn't know if that was nervous energy or he was sort of struggling with like what he can and cannot say, what he does and what doesn't know. Mentioned at one point, like, I'm not even looking at him when he talked about Mitch doing the side work in the gym. So I did pick up some there. I don't know if it was nervous energy or just, I think these guys are probably just like, they've done more press conferences by a lot than games, actual games, press conferences after practices. They're probably tired of talking about it and just want to get out there and just tip this thing off. I think that's probably more of it, but maybe you sense something there. I don't know. I didn't personally, but I did see the coach being a little ornery, maybe a little bit, a touch.
Ornery.
Benjy's ornery right now.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't see the press conferences. It was a busy day. I did see Hart's answer to Wemby guarding him. He's like, well, if the only unanimous defense player of the year ever was like guarding me, I must be a pretty good player, which is not really the reason he's guarding you, but funny nonetheless. It's actually so he can guard everybody else, which is ironic. And I think Josh knows that, but that's okay. We love you, Josh, and we hope you make shots. Thank you, Abe Eckstein.
Hush Z. What's up, Hush? Do you all expect the rust to be as bad as Cavs game 1? Yeah, it's interesting. I do think being on the road helps in this case. I think it sort of gives you an edge and a focus that may be a little more hard to find when you're at home and you're kind of just you're a little more comfortable. So I'm going to go on the limb and say there's going to be less rust in game 1 against San Antonio, with the road aspect being a big key to it. And knowing you can't go down, 15-4 to start this game. Like, you got to be ready to go. And I think the team will be. So I'm not worried as much about the rust as I actually was in game 1 against Cleveland.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I'm not a big rust believer. I think the start of the Cleveland game was very much like a shock to the system, and like, this is how defenses that can play this way, do play, and the Knicks adjusting to the thing that bothers them, which is this defensive alignment, and they hadn't faced it really yet at a high level in the playoffs. To me, that's more of the reason that they came out and struggled in game 1 against Cleveland. It is, I don't, if they struggle to start the game, I don't think it's because of rust. I think it's because they, DJ, you said this right at the beginning. Like, Wemby it takes adjusting to. the guy is taller than anybody else, and shooting over him is an adjustment. And as much as I'm sure they're working on stuff with like closeout drills where they have a pole or whatever, and teams do this to kind of adjust to Wemby as the different kind of height that you're dealing with. I think you might see the Knicks take some time to figure that out. But I also have like a tremendous amount of faith in them, even if they start the game down 15-4, that they'll work their way back into it. And that's just kind of how they roll. So I don't know. I don't know if I don't know how much rust it was in Cleveland as much as like a change in the competition. And I don't know if it'll be rust if they struggle coming out in game 1 against San Antonio, as much as it's Wemby, it's the NBA Finals, it's a different test, and you have to adjust to it.
Agreed. Thanks, you, Hush. John is back. Did my other super chats go through I sent before show started? I think we got all of them.
Yes, they did, John.
Yes, they did, John. Yes, they did, John.
Yes, they did. Thanks, John.
Yes, they did, John. Thank you for the contribution. Next.
Dan Hildago. What's up, Dan? Wendy said on his pod, JB is one of the best problem solvers in the NBA. Never could put my finger on the intangibles he brings. What say you? I think it's a great, and it kind of gets to the point I made about, where he's different than SGA in that, you're aggressive. First of all, I think Brunson has gotten so good at like when there is an aggressive, whether it's trap or they're showing to like where to go with the basketball. And it's not just like getting into the opposite wing, like his typical like Josh Hart outlet pass and kind of keeping it moving, but getting into the middle of the floor and allowing, whether it's usually Bridges, but even like McBride or Hart in some cases, just make plays in that area. And then the off-ball movement and the relocation off offensive rebounding, like he is such a varied offensive threat that it allows him, regardless of the defense, to have these solutions. And it's built on like him being well schooled beyond like any of our imaginations in terms of like his upbringing, and then the skill level to sort of like apply all of it. It's like he's a real, I think it's a great way of putting it. If when that Wemby said it in that way, he is a problem solver, and this Knicks offense is a problem solving offense right now in a lot of ways. And I think it's kind of starts with him.
Bill Simmons actually said something too, just to add to all those things that really kind of struck a chord, is like his self-assurance. Like he's just incredibly confident to the point where sometimes I find his confidence gets in the way, where like sometimes you do have to retreat or like recede into the background a little bit. And he is so confident that he can solve the problem that he's just going to keep going at it and at it and at it until he does. But yes, he is 100% one of the best problem solvers in the NBA. He solved the problem of being 6 feet tall and not a jumper and being an elite NBA scorer. That in of itself is the greatest problem to solve, and he has solved it. And then when all these Brunson stoppers that come along soon become non-Brunson stoppers by the end of a series for one reason or another, he finds a way. And he's he's awesome. That's Jalen Brunson. And Dan just added in terms of figuring out how to exploit defenses. Yeah, I think the variety of ways he can score helps. 3-level shot maker. Even if you do play great defense, he will still make shots. So that helps. He's brilliant. Dan, he's brilliant. He's. I think you can expect very big things from him as he tries to track down, dare I say, a Finals MVP. So we'll see. Noel Eisenberg, or as DJ might call him, Noel Eisenberg. How much importance do you guys put on Game 1? Is it a split with a win in Game 1 more important psychologically for New York than the Spurs? Deej? I feel like I'm trailing now behind you as you're hearing me after I speak. But
yeah, I think.
What do you got there, Deej?
We're good. I think we're linked up now. I think this is I actually put more. If I'm a Knicks guy, I want to win Game 1. I think Game 1 is like the game you want to get. I think obviously like Spurs coming off the emotional high. I think they're going to be a more gettable team on the road in a Game 1. Game 2, where you're already down 1, I hate that because going down 0-2 is just, it's a tough hill to climb. I think getting the first game is going to be really important. I do, and I think it's look. Eventually, the Knicks are going to lose a game. Theoretically, I mean, there's no evidence that that's actually going to happen. We don't know. So I'd rather get the if we're going to split, I'd rather get the first one and then go down the second one with the team being like obviously desperate to get the second one at home, and then you're 1-1 going back to your place for game 3. But yeah, I think game 1 is the one I want.
Doesn't really matter to me, to be honest. Some of it's like how game 1 is lost, if it's lost, you know. Like I think there'll be a game or two where Wemby makes a lot of outside shots, and you probably lose those games, and you just have to like, all right, moving on to the next one. He won't make those same ones. And I think if he like comes out and goes 6 for 9 from 3 or something crazy, and just has like his like Wemby has arrived in the finals game, you can pretty easily, I think, go to game 2 and just get the series back to where it needs to be. I think if you get a split in San Antonio, you're happy either way. But I hear your point, Deej. Thank you, Noel. Oh, that's it. That's it. It's pronounced Noel. Noel Eisenberg. Sorry, Noel.
Okay.
Have you heard of the first name Noel?
Just did.
DJ's like 12 seconds behind me now. This is what happens when the stream goes 2 hours. All right. Well, thank you all for your contributions. This was a lot of fun. 2 hours in the books here at the Knicks Film School X's and O's live show. This has been a blast. NBA Finals Preview Edition. I mean, who could ask for anything more than that? We will be with you for the remainder of the NBA Finals, as you might imagine, every step of the way. We want to thank you for tuning in. We want to ask you to please like this video, subscribe to our channel. If you're listening on the audio feed, please leave a 5-star rating and review. Follow KFS on the socials at Knicks Film School. Subscribe to our Patreon for the finals. The Brunson tier, me and Deej, all our work is there for the finals. You can subscribe now. You didn't all season. I don't like you, but you could make up for it now. And I think that's a great idea. And I realized as Andrew's yelling at me, we didn't make a prediction. So before we actually say goodbye, DJ, who is going to win the NBA championship?
I'm going to say Knicks in a tumultuous 7-game series come out on top, and we get a parade down the Canyon of Heroes. Yes.
I'll take Knicks in 6, run and hide. Let's go. Let's go to the bank, dude. Let's win a championship. Let's have some fun. This has been the Knicks Film School show. That's DJ Zullo. This is Benjy Ritholtz. Thank you guys for joining us. Enjoy the NBA Finals. This is an amazing opportunity for the fans. Have fun. Don't just be scared like DJ. Have fun. And we will see you guys soon. Goodbye.